my name is Matthew Flanagan, and today we're going to be taking a look at the newest project out by the NorbSoftDev team, that is Scourge of War Waterloo. The game comes out on June 11th, just a week before the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Waterloo, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at one of the big new features in the game, that's the Sandbox Campaign. Now, when you open up the Sandbox Campaign, this is the very first screen that you're greeted with. You can choose the name of the campaign, your sides, your commanders, and your town. But the first thing I want us to take a look at is the victory conditions. There are 4 different types of Sandbox Campaign you can play. Basically, you can look at taking one town. You want to capture the city of Brussels. You can conquer the map, occupying a majority of the towns. You can look at destroying the enemy, which is just as it says, you're going to go around and attempt to destroy the enemy army. And you also have the option of destroying supplies, which is basically going to where the enemy starts their campaign and taking that town, kind of representing destroying an enemy's base of supply. There are numerous different starting towns that you can choose from. It doesn't matter which side you start as. You can choose from any of the towns included here. This is not all of the towns on the map, just the towns you can actually start the battle from. You can also go ahead and choose the commander that you want to play as. So you can play as Napoleon Bonaparte in charge of the French army, or you can play as one of the subordinate commands, that being each one of these being a corps that you can choose from. If you'd like, you can even go smaller than that, fighting it out on the divisional level in command of a couple of brigades or battalions of artillery or cavalry as well. And if you're unsure of what your unit includes, basically you just hit the plus symbol, expand the unit out, and each different type of unit has a little graphic there on the screen. You can see the little musket represents an infantry unit, the artillery icons there represent artillery units, and the horse icons there represent cavalry units. So it's a way that the game communicates to you what type of unit is included in the units that you're selecting. Now the French only have one commander. They have Napoleon Bonaparte. The Allies' senior commander is the Duke of Wellington, but there are 2 armies that you can choose from within the Allied armies, either playing as the Anglo-Allied force, which is the Dutch and the British forces, or as the Prussian army under Field Marshal Blücher. I'd also like to apologize for any issues with pronunciation of names. That's certainly not one of my strengths. In today's game, we're going to be playing as Lieutenant General Sir Rowland Hill, one of the corps commanders in the Anglo-Allied Army under the Duke of Wellington. You can see here he has several different units, some divisions under Generals Clinton, Colville, and Steedman, and some cavalry units as well. Each of these infantry units has artillery attached to it, and then the cavalry also has some artillery attached to it as well. The force in total will number about 30,000 men, and when we select that unit, the computer will automatically select the French unit that we're playing against. It will be a force of roughly equal strength. We're going to play the Destroy the Enemy objective. Basically, just our goal is going to be pretty simple, find out the enemy and destroy them, and we're going to be playing with the city of Brussels as our starting point on the map. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to the campaign. Alright, so here we are. We're looking at the campaign map on the Battle of Waterloo Sandbox Campaign. You can see here by the little flag icon in the bottom left, the French units are starting in the city of Liege. If we go ahead and move over and zoom in a bit, you can see we can scroll up or down with the mouse wheel on the computer in order to get a closer look at various towns that are represented on the map. You can see the French flag over the city of Liege indicates that the French troops are in Liege. If we click on the city map, we'll see that there are no forces that we can view in this town. That's because of the fog of war. It doesn't tell us exactly what the enemy has here. We can see some information on every single town, which we'll go over in a little bit. But basically, the flag is all we really get as far as telling us what is in that town. It just tells us where the enemy is. We can click on the status button on the bottom right to get a summary of all the different towns. It'll tell you which ones are occupied by Allied forces or enemy forces. You can see at the start of the campaign, it's just Brussels occupied by us, Liege by the enemy. It gives you a summary of your objective in the campaign as well as a force summary. So we've got 100% of our remaining force, about 30,000 men. The enemy has just shy of 20,000 soldiers with 100% of those remaining as well. So we have about a 3-2 advantage, but that doesn't necessarily mean much depending on the breakdown of forces. For example, if the French have the guard troops, that might give them a substantial advantage over maybe less experienced troops that we might have. All right, now if you go back and take a look at Brussels, click on that town name, you'll see in this city, because we occupy the town, we've got a breakdown of all the different forces that are included there. Different factors such as morale, fatigue, experience, men, casualties, ammo are all included in the town that you can go over. The towns also have the ability to regain fatigue, morale, and wounded, basically walking wounded can recover. There are different rates at which those items occur. You also have the ability to train troops in a town. Now, if you select a unit that hasn't gained any extra experience and you try and train them, they don't have the ability to do that. They need to gain some experience before you can train. And if you click on one of the other towns here, you'll see different towns have different ratings for their fatigue, morale, and wounded recovery rates. That's somewhat decided based on the text of the town. So you'll see there's a lot of towns here with gray text in the name. Some towns have gold. The golden towns are gold basically to represent that units that are based there are going to gain those, walking wounded back, fatigue, morale bonuses more quickly than the towns that are spelled out in gray. If you go ahead and you click on the flag of your troops, you'll get a order of battle. So you can see here we've got Lieutenant General Sir Rowland Hill, as well as his various commands that are underneath him. We have the ability to detach units off of the main command as well. All right, so what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and divide our army up a little bit, just a little bit. I'm going to keep the bulk of our force under General Hill. All of the infantry will stay with Hill, but we are going to break apart 2 of our cavalry forces to basically protect the flanks of our army and provide a little bit better of a scouting ability for our army. So we're going to move 1 cavalry division down our right, 1 down our left, and then we're going to move the infantry and our 1 remaining cavalry force down the center to provide us a little bit wider of a scouting radius so that the enemy hopefully doesn't surprise us at any point. So what you do is once you go ahead and you detach your forces, all you need to do is click on the unit that you want to command here on the Detached Campaign OOB list, and then you're going to click the destination that you want them to go. So in this case, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and click on General Grant. We'll go ahead and minimize that, and then we'll click on the town that we want them to go to. We've got to play the game to issue orders, but basically just click on the town name, and you can see there's a little graphic that'll display where that unit is going to go. So again, we've already clicked General Grant. We're moving him off along the left side of our route. General Vivian, we'll go ahead and select his British Cavalry Brigade and move him to Namur. And then we'll go ahead and bring up the 2nd Corps under General Hill. The bulk of our force is going to move toward... I guess we'll move them toward the center of the map here. And then that way we've got some cavalry moving down the left roads. We've got some cavalry moving down the roads toward Namur. And then the infantry is kind of in the middle so that if we pick the enemy coming up on either side of our force, we can rush the infantry to that town, hopefully before the enemy gets there. And if they come right at our center, well, then again, we're well prepared for that. So now that we've got the campaign going real quick here, you can see on the bottom left there's a few different time control buttons. You can pause the campaign, you can play the campaign, or you can fast forward the campaign. Right now we've got a little bit, the game is fast forwarded a little bit, but units are moving here. You can see they all have an icon and a different flag representing the units on the map. And then we can go ahead and fast forward things a little bit more here. So you see our infantry's moving through Warv right now, cavalry moving down the flanks, and ideally they wouldn't hit us at this point. If they tried to hit us on the left, we'd be a little bit spread out. We're pretty far detached at this moment from that cavalry scouting force way out there on the left. But hopefully we remedy that. I think I'll move our troops here to Hotamont, if that's how you pronounce it. Again, my pronunciations aren't the best, so I apologize there. And... you can see also on Liege on the top left there's no longer a French icon on the city of Liege. That means the AI has vacated that city. It's now unoccupied. So they are on the march somewhere as well. And I would imagine we're moving in the same direction, but I guess we'll find out. Hopefully the French don't get a jump on us here. There's definitely some flexibility in how much you want to fast forward. Oh, there we go. We've got the French. They've taken or occupied this town up here. and marched right through it apparently. So they didn't stick around, but we did detect the French up here. We've moved our cavalry into Namur, and I'd say we want to move our infantry in that direction as well, given the enemy infantry was spotted just up on the very top of the map there. I'm not sure what I want to do with my cavalry at this point. The enemy is marching directly to the right, it appears. Not sure where their objective is going to be. I could move these horse out to... if we move them to... Is that Dinette? If we move them there, they're going to get... Probably... They'll be too late if the enemy's moving that direction. If we move them east toward Foss... We can do that. That way, if the enemy tries to march around us on the map, we'll have some forewarning here. And then we're going to move our cavalry into Wei, hopefully to come in behind them if the enemy tries to double back toward the direction of Liege, while the main bulk of our force heads to Namur, which I would hope maybe the enemy noticed that we took the town and... Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. The French are moving. Looks like it's... I don't think my cavalry brigade by itself is going to be sufficient to engage likely what the French have broken apart, so we'll go ahead and pull those guys back. They're just a light cavalry brigade, and we'll move our infantry through Namur, maybe swinging to the west to try and find the main French body as we pull them. Wait a minute. Oh my goodness, I wasn't even paying attention. So the French have moved another force in behind us. This is obviously me not paying too close attention. The French have moved an enemy force in behind us toward Namur, essentially cutting us between the cavalry force at Hue and a force at Namur. It appears this is probably the main body of their force here. When the battle screen pops up when two armies collide, gives you a summary of the different forces included. This is quite a large enemy force, and you can see here when battle is joined, you have the option to either fight by clicking the battle button on the bottom left or retreat on the bottom right. You also get a summary of the forces involved, and what we're going to do is we're going to fight. We're going to play the battle. All right, so here we are. Lieutenant General Sir Rowland Hill. That's where we start. That's our character in the battlefield. You can almost look at Scourge of War like a role-playing game, in that while it's a real-time tactical game, you also play the role of one specific character in the game. So in this case, we're playing as Sir Rowland Hill. In other scenarios, you'll play as other generals, even Napoleon or the Duke of Wellington. But the point of that is that rather than just being in total godlike control, you're actually represented on the map with one sprite who basically is you, and if you're killed, you end up losing the battle because, well, you died, so you can't finish the fight. It'll end the battle there. So in that sense, the game's a bit different. Now, in regards to the campaign game, because that's of course what we're playing here, when two armies meet on a map, they join in a battle, much as we're seeing here. Now, this battle happens to be a line of sight battle, where we're actually in pretty close proximity with the French forces. We can see them, but we're not engaged yet. We're definitely within artillery range, so artillery may begin firing shortly, but essentially this battle starts where both armies start in essentially within line of sight of each other. Different battles start different ways, so you could also end up fighting a battle in a hunt them down mode or attack and defend as well. So these are all different game type modes pulled directly out of the Sandbox game. If you're familiar with our previous games, you'll know that you had the ability to fight a Sandbox game where basically you pick a unit and you go ahead and you start the game, and it just generates kind of a random scenario at a random point on one of the maps. In the campaign battles, when you meet an enemy, it starts in much the same way. The two armies end up fighting in one of these four types of battles and are thrown into a random spot in one of these random maps. This video is going to be focusing less on the actual battle and less on the actual way you fight a battle, and more just kind of showing you how battles relate to the campaign game. We'll do another video later that goes into more detail of fighting and commanding armies during battles, but here you can see we're jumping forward just a little bit to take a look at as our forces form up. And you can see here on the right we've got some cavalry that's been under fire by some French artillery, and it's been laid waste by the French artillery battery on the right. The French had very effective artillery during the Napoleonic campaigns. It was less effective at Waterloo because of the tactics that Wellington utilized and because of the soft ground, which minimized artillery shells from skipping across the ground, but still very effective batteries. And as a commander, you definitely want to be wary of leaving your troops in the open under enemy artillery bombardment, especially if enemy cavalry is nearby and you're stuck in a square formation, or your own cavalry also. Your horses make great big targets. So some of our troops here are moving into position, and one thing that you'll notice here as you play the game are some new features and tactics which are absolutely critical for understanding and being able to fight a Napoleonic battle. You can see here we've got a regiment of, I believe, Dutch troops here that have formed up into square. Actually, a couple of regiments here on our left flank have formed into square as the French cavalry have advanced. We still have some troops in the rear that are also in line, but a square formation is absolutely critical in order to be able to defend against cavalry. You'll see the French cavalry is not charged our square yet, and given how effective squares are against cavalry, they'd be well advised not to. And another new feature here you'll see is we've got a split battalion here of the Hanover Brigade, which I've selected as I kind of scan around. Again, you can see the French cavalry has been reluctant to charge our squares here on the left, as our troops again continue to get into formation behind our squares. During the Napoleonic Wars, companies would often be split off from a battalion and advance in front as skirmishers. Often these companies were designated skirmishers, but they were still part of the main battalion. So if you want, you can definitely control which parts of your force break off and form skirmishers, or let the AI do it. It does a pretty good job. We'll talk about that more in a later video. And then here, as we swivel back to the left a bit, we've got some troops in square formation because of the close proximity of enemy cavalry. At the same time, we've got French infantry engaging them in a line, which is definitely a recipe for disaster if you're the defender stuck in a square. Now, there's definitely a lot going on in this battle, and probably too much to explain all of the individual features and what have you. This battle is just a little bit too large. You can see the infantry that I formed into line is now retreating because the enemy cavalry is attacking them. But then as they retreat toward the square, the horsemen essentially have to call off the pursuit as those men retreat through the square for fear of running into a square. Again, cavalry is very reluctant to attack squares, as they should be, and if you do manage to coax them into attacking a square, they will likely suffer. The key is catching the troops before they form into a square, and that's your best hope for actually successfully attacking an enemy line infantry. Or if you can hit them in line, you can definitely try and sneak up on them, as was the case to several French units at Waterloo, where they didn't spot the cavalry before it was too late to form a square and then catch them in the lurch. But essentially there's quite a bit going on in this battle, and I don't think just throwing you into a core battle and saying, here's the game, is the best way to kind of show off the new features. I wanted to show you guys infantry units forming square as cavalry attack, and also kind of that dilemma of when do troops stay in square, when do they pull back into line. The AI is really good about forming troops into square, but it can be a little bit difficult for you or the AI, as it should be, to make that decision on when a troop should switch back into line formation after they've already formed in square. You can see here it's just a massive engagement here, 60,000 men on the field and only one corps on each side engaged. So quite a huge battle here as we're being driven back quite steadily. So as I said, when you go into a campaign battle, you end up with a sandbox battle, and then you fight it out on the battlefield, much as we're seeing here. I've let most of this battle be fought out just by letting the division commanders kind of run amok and do what they need to do. But here in this case, what I think we're going to do is, we can see here some French are trying to sneak in behind some of our troops. You can already see the troops up there on the other side to the top left of the map are forming square, while the troops here in line may not be aware of the French horsemen to their rear. But again, you see these individuals did manage to form into square, and as a result, the French decided it's probably not a good idea to charge right into them. But anyway, we saw some troops form into square. We talked briefly about units splitting other units off and acting as skirmishers, and some of the tactical dilemmas that a commander would face in the very complex combined arms conflict that was the Napoleonic Wars and the battlefield. So rather than continue on with the battles, I skipped through a good portion of this. What happens after a battle ends? How does that campaign develop? And that's what I want to take a look at here. We'll have another video that talks more about the specific changes in the battlefield command and the user interface and some of the tactical decisions that you're going to be faced. But when a battle is done, when you win or when you lose, what happens on the campaign map and what follows that engagement? Let's take a look at that real quick here. So after a battle, we're transported back here to the campaign map, and if we click on this battles icon on the bottom right, we can see a history of all the different engagements that we fought in. Enemy retreated means the enemy retreated before the battle actually began. Enemy won means obviously that they won. Allies won mean we won. And then again, their battles can also end in a draw. So this is a different campaign obviously here, but you can see that these are all different battles which have taken place here in and around the Namur region. If we click on the status window, we can again see the status of various cities and towns, but we also get a sense of where we're at in progressing to victory. So the towns would be relevant if it's a goal to capture a certain number of enemy towns. The percentage of the enemy force remaining would be relevant in our case, where the goal is to destroy the enemy. And essentially, once you win or lose a battle, your forces are stuck kind of for an hour after the engagement takes place. If you've lost, you are forced to retreat, representing the fact that you just can't race back into battle immediately after you've lost a fight. If you've won the fight, you also need to reorganize your command, so you can't instantly just jackhammer back into the enemy forces in order to just keep attacking and attacking. There certainly is a pursuit that's involved, but it's not instantaneous. Again, you're not going to just keep smashing the enemy in 30 seconds and destroy them. Rear guards around this time were fairly effective, and large engagements like this took some time to get your force back into condition to be able to pursue the enemy. You very rarely saw an instant pursuit, as much as maybe it seems like units should pursue. In addition to that, you also have the ability to pull your troops back into cities. They can regain fatigue, morale. Wounded troops can rejoin the ranks to simulate walking wounded being able to rejoin the force. And essentially the campaign continues like this until it's over, until you destroy more than 50% of the enemy in this case, until you take more than 50% of the towns in the capturing case, or any other of the victory conditions in the different campaigns. So we could definitely play the campaign out and show you more battles and more fights, and probably watch me losing to the AI, because again, a core battle is a little bit beyond me in a sandbox battle. But that'll just about do it here in this case for this video. Again, I just wanted to show you kind of what the campaign game looks like, what it entails. The campaign game can be very robust and last quite a while. The Sandbox Campaign has quite a few different options as far as the strategy that you want to employ. But as far as this video is concerned, we're going to go ahead and cut this video out. We are going to have another video where I focus more on the actual battlefield. This was more just about the campaign game, its mechanics, and kind of how a battle shows up in a campaign. With our next video, what we'll take a look at is some of the changes in the tactical elements of the actual fighting of the battle. Look a little bit at more depth of combined arms, and just explore the Napoleonic battlefield and some of the changes that were made to the user interface. But for now, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and on behalf of the NorbSoft team, I hope you enjoyed this. And remember, Scourge of War Waterloo will become available for purchase on MatrixGames and Slytherin's website on June 11th. Again, that's just 1 week before the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Waterloo. June 11th, the game will be available, and until next time, everyone, thanks for watching.